Okay. Good morning, February 20th, Land Bank Commission meeting, and hope everybody's staying warm. I just took the coat off, that's the first time. So I think we'll start out with public comment, if there's anybody who'd like to offer a public comment.
I'd like to make a public comment, please, if I could.
Go for it.
It's Ice Machio, Selecha. I finished my Hela, Josiah to finish that, so I have some installed. My name is Josiah. I'm from here, San Juan Island. A bit ago, I sent an email carrying forward a message from Elder Jacinton and Zeke Bob, John Elliott, and Christine Greenfield that were wanted me to carry a message forward to Land Bank about the Mount Grant project that's there. And I sent an email, and it was basically just the name that they chose, or the name that they wanted to offer. I just wanted to submit that idea, that project. It is supported by my families, and I'm getting more tribal engagement on the American side of the conversation. But I'm also allowing for the respect of the elder to do that work. But it's my job as the name of my family is Jacinta. That comes from T-Lalem, but it's definitely derived here, and it's important for them to have some of that power and engaging in the tribes themselves. So this is the work that I'm doing. It's just that email I sent. And I want to be careful about what I say, but I wanted to definitely explain to you guys in person the name that we propose. It's a very important word in this Chatham language, but it comes from a cultural role. It isn't like we're planting the flag saying this is, this is the name of this mountain. It's the name of the cultural role my grandma played here that a lot of people rely on. It's very important to Samish families and Sash and Lummi and Tulalip families still recognize the Sigewa. The Sigewa is culture is a medicine woman. She is in charge of continuity of life from beginning to the end, from birth even to death. So she aided in all of those things, including she's a seer, and that's what Sigewa is a kind of not sort of like a visionary for the people, but so we want to use the opportunity at Mount Grant because that's where it was used. We don't have a place anymore, Mount Grant. We have a story for formation of the islands and different locations where unique limestone clusters are found. We have historian names for that, but we wanted to tell the story of this place that was used to see people coming, to see the weather. It's a place that was used to oversee kind of the area. So that's kind of the name that we wanted to use. That's brought not from me, but from my elders. It's Sigewa Preserve. So that's kind of the work that I've been wanting to do. But I want to also just a short story they wanted me to kind of include, and it's really important to understand. And I wrote it down because I don't want to screw it up, but it's basically rooted in the story that we sort of understand here, right? Our grandfathers paddled, they paddled to relatives' territories and fish. If my grandfather caught a salmon in a relative's reef net location, he did so because he was welcomed. He respected the fishing site, similar to rivers too. My great grandfather would go to the Swallow River, right? And that's kind of like the kinship systems that still exist. He followed the laws that were in place. When he returned home, he did not claim that fishing ground as his own. He did not rename it. He understood it already carried a name, a family, and a governance system. And that is Indigenous law. It's a very important part of Indigenous law and the sustainability of the people, not just the people of the fish and everything. So I just wanted to carry forward that travel does not equal naming authority. Harvest does not equal jurisdiction. And relationship carries responsibility, and responsibility determines the. So, I just wanted to give that message today, and offer that word. It comes from very old language from here. That's not recognized because of the word. It's in the Canadian school curriculum, but not offered here on the other side. So we want to, start that tradition. I spent it in.
Thank you, thank you. I want to acknowledge that, I really appreciate your input and you're coming to the meeting and we've been talking about our naming policy, to kind of put it dryly, about how we name our different properties. And so I think we can kind of include this as part of our discussion. But I appreciate your come. Thanks so much. Anybody else from the public? Okay, nice, very good. So moving on, for the January 16th minutes, are there any comments, corrections? I'm looking at Tim. Okay. Any comments? So hearing none, I guess we will consider that the January 16th meeting minutes are approved. And now, Chair and Commissioners, I want to welcome our two new commissioners, Mary Brock and Chris Gadati. And I'm so pleased you're both here. Yeah, and want to offer anything, any comments or anything? Not everybody knows you.
Well, I'll just say that I'm really honored to be on the commission. I think very highly of the land bank and the work it does, and it's just, it's really a passion of mine to protect the environment, particularly out here in the island. It's so special, so to be part of a great organization like this means a lot to me, so grateful.
And for those who don't know, Chris has got an extensive and very deep background in public lands management. And is representing District 1. And he represents District 1, but he will be speaking for all of us. Of course. Mary.
I would say the same as Chris. Yeah, I'm really thankful and honored to be here, taking on a new role with the land bank. And I have deep respect for everything that you've done. I've joined you.
Yeah. As part of the threesome who interviewed people, we had a fantastic lineup. Yeah, it just felt like it was such a wonderful reflection of where the land bank is right now in terms of the quality of the people who applied to be part of the land bank commission. And it was fantastic. It was inspiring and a really difficult process to make a final decision. But anyway, so happy you're both here. Any other commissioner reports?
Peggy and I went to the listening session for the island, or the county farmers that the ARC and the Ag Guild put together, and it was very interesting. Just as a broad overview, and I hope I'm not misstating, but farmers are less interested right now in finding land to farm. Their immediate problem is making enough money to stay there. So it doesn't mean the land bank doesn't have a role in this, but it was very good to hear what they're thinking about, their concerns.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that. That was a really lively discussion. It was the one that we went to was Lopez first, and then it was Zoomed countywide. And we did put out, that we were there representing the land bank and we were looking for input, but that was not really the focus. But I'm hoping we can put together kind of a working group to talk about the land bank and ag, so we can really kind of zone in on that. Any other reports? No, no field trips?
You're not telling.
Even, okay. Moving on, Justin said he was coming over, we saw him. But he's,
You said it was gonna be late.
okay. So. Preservation Trust. Vicky,
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Vicki Edwards. I'm the Conservation Director at the San Juan Preservation Trust. I have a few exciting updates for you all this morning. The first being is that with the gifts received to date and in process, we do expect to be able to meet our fundraising goal to acquire the future San Juan Preservation Trust Mount Ben West Preserve on March 31st. And so want to thank you all and all the other contributors, members, donors, all the public for helping to support such a significant project for the islands and our communities. So thank you so much. If folks would like to learn more about the project, please refer to our website. We're still raising those dollars until we have everything in hand. But like I said, things are looking really promising based upon what we know at this point. So many thanks to all. And then also want to mention that once we acquire the property, we will be continuing discussions with the Conservation Land Bank on a future conservation easement on that Mount Ben West Preserve. And we are working behind the scenes with Lincoln and the prosecuting attorney's office with John and Amy and our outside legal counsel, Alice Jones, on a cooperative agreement in regards to that conservation easement. So more to come on that. Just want to thank all those involved in helping us get that completed so we can move that phase of the project forward. And as you all know, the future goal, which will be a couple of years down the road, will eventually be to have a public trail access from the West Side Preserve and the shoreline of Harris Strait all the way to the top of Mount Ben Preserve complexes that are owned by the San Juan Preservation Trust and the Land Bank. So more to come on that, but things are moving along as planned, with the most significant aspect of that project almost completed at the end of March, which is the acquisition of that critical piece of the puzzle in providing that overall landscape connectivity. And I also want to share, we've got just a shift in some staffing at the Preservation Trust. Kathleen Lewis was previously cross-program within the conservation program as well as our stewardship program as our Director of Special Projects. And she has recently shifted 100% into the stewardship program and co-directing that program with Dean Doherty. So for all the Stewies, just know you'll be working even more with Kathleen on various projects on our preserves. She's continuing, of course, with the restoration work on many of our preserves, as well as the species recovery work and then some. So don't hesitate to reach out to her to learn more about her new role and how she can partner with you all on various projects on preserves throughout the county. And then lastly, I know that, and just want to thank Lincoln and the commission for setting up the quarterly meetings that are ongoing with the Preservation Trust and the Conservation Land Bank as part of partnership meetings. And I know there's a committee that's set up that'll be meeting with a couple of our board members and Angela Anderson, our executive director, this afternoon. Those conversations are really invaluable in being able to share additional information. And just want to thank you all for continuing to have that as a working group or subcommittee as part of your commission. Folks are looking forward to seeing you later this afternoon. And that's the final update for me. Thank you.
I commend you on finishing up that major fundraising task. And for every, have you been up there? No. Have you? But you haven't either. Well, I highly recommend a field trip,
Yes.
because some of us were able to get up there and it is spectacular. There's some of the biggest oak trees I've ever seen.
Oh, just amazing. And thank you, Peggy. And I'll actually work with Lincoln and once it warms up a little bit, taking some folks out there that have not been able to see the property yet, and especially our new commissioners. So we would love to provide a tour up there for you all.
Great. Good.
Thank you.
So I noticed Justin showed up. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we skipped you over, but now we're back at you.
I don't have anything specific for presentation today. I thank everybody for allowing me to be late. I can happily report that the San Juan Island School District levy is now officially certified and passed.
Yay.
I think the biggest thing to report from the council side is, as everybody's probably heard, we will be putting forward a levy lid lift on the April ballot. And that is to support multiple aspects of county services. But like most of the districts in San Juan County, we have not done a levy lid lift since the inflationary factors that happened during COVID. And so this levy lid lift is really to reset our rates and keep up with the cost of doing business. So we will be asking the voters to make a decision on that for us. To sustain a lot of the services that we provide. I think as it pertains to land bank, one of the discussions that you always have is, well, land bank has money, why do we need to give you money? And explaining to the voters how we segregate money and how we put money in different columns to do different work, and then the land bank has its own funding mechanism, its own accounting mechanism, and that we can't just come to the land bank and say, hey, we'd like to take $2 million from you to fill our general budget issues. So from that perspective, the assistance of this group and helping us communicate that language that the land bank really functions as a separate function in the county, and that was by design, and that was approved by the voters, and that the money that the land bank has were approved by the voters for a very specific purpose. That we can't loot you guys to serve Southern Department. Then I guess the only other piece was at the last meeting, my first meeting as liaison. I mentioned that I'd really like to put boots on the ground on as many land bank properties as possible, and Doug took me up on that almost immediately. In fact, actually immediately, and we left from this meeting and went out and visited 5 or 6 different land bank properties. Just after the last meeting, it was a beautiful day. Got to put feet on the ground on spaces I didn't even know existed. And in parts of the island that I also didn't know existed. So I thank you, Doug, for that. Looking forward to doing more of that, maybe not today. So that's what I have to report.
Great. Tim.
Justin, on the ballot measure, is that passed by a simple majority, or do we need a certain percentage of votes?
50% plus one.
Okay,
So yeah, since it's a ongoing levy, it's just 50%. I believe the 60% kicks in when we're talking about bonding.
okay.
Is when we have to go to that higher degree, so.
Sure.
Yeah, this is just for current expense.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Come on over to Lopez. We can give you a tool
I intend to be there,
when it's warmer.
well, I think it's gonna be in about 2 weeks, but I'll let you know.
Oh, please do. Yeah, I'd like to keep her. Okay. Moving on.
John, I got a chair over here.
Hey, Johnson. Financial. The
All right.
big part of our meeting today is Aaron.
On the screen. Okay, so. This is gonna be a little bit of a trend. We do have two new commissioners, to come on board, a new liaison. And then for commissioners that have been around, this is a little bit of just like a 101 training, how. The land bank operates from a financial standpoint. Given that we have two separate funds, how. What basis of accounting that the county uses and the land bank uses, budget structure, timeline, just kind of a general overview. It might not answer all of your questions, but it might answer some, and it also might raise a few new questions for you too. So we can start here at the ground level. Without going in too depth on calculus and calculation and analysis and different reports like that. That's not what this report and training is for. This is just, how does this function? Why do we do what we do? So I just wanted to start off with that. I've been to many classes and conferences, and there's no way to judge up financial PowerPoints. They are just inherently dry. Do the best you can, but not too much to play with from there. So let's get started first. A little bit about the two different types of accounting methods that are really out there and used on a general basis. There's cash basis and GAAP accounting or accrual accounting. GAAP stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. There's with GAAP versus cash. The differences are cash basis is much more simplified. Financial software and operations and staffing and documentation is less expensive. Generally understand it overall, a little bit easier by a general public. GAAP accounting or accrual accounting is much more in-depth. For instance, it accounts for money that is owed the second you owe it. So in terms of how we kind of adapt it for ourselves, not as the county, but as internal documentation, you think of granting. We know when we enter into an agreement and accept it and are awarded a grant, we know there's going to be accruals, things that it's going to cost us, and how much we might get in return. In GAAP accounting or accrual accounting, this is done across the board with many different aspects of your accounting software. It costs a lot more money to manage from an accounting department. In the state of Washington, each local government actually has the option of using either one. Only about 20% of local governments in the state use GAAP, and it's usually the larger agencies, ones that can sustain that type of staff and software to manage what's required for GAAP. So San Juan County has chosen to use cash basis for their accounting system. So that's a little bit of background, just the 101 on the differences. Cash, we only account for money when it's received and when it goes out. And that's it. And that's how things are reported on. So for budgeting, the county has adopted a biennial budget. This started in 2020. So each budget cycle covers 2 years. So it started in 2020 and 2021, and then every 2 years from there. Due to constraints on our own county's financial management software, We do a biennium, but it's really two annual budgets. We don't calculate the 2 years as one total. It's two annual budgets done together at one time where we monitor that and adjust that through amendments, 3 amendments throughout the year and a mid-biennium review. Those are the ways that we can make changes to that biennium budget, but just for nuts and bolts, it is biennium budgeting, so when we work on this as a whole, we're approving 2 years. But the way it's set up is two individual annual budgets lumped together. For instance, this year, we, as a county, started out looking at 2 years, we're only able to get an annual budget done. So we're currently operating off of just the 2026 annual budget for this year. Reporting and schedules. First off, we have two different consistent reporting tools that we use. First would be the quarterly reports. This is in the land bank code. We are required to do at least one annual summary of our expenses and acquisitions and revenues. And that's what it says in the land bank ordinance and code. Our commission has adopted a quarterly report. So we'll do one January, April, July, and October. That's the schedule for those quarterly reports. And we have a lot of flexibility when we're doing a summary. This is where we can shape how we want to display our financial information to the public and for the commission, because it's a summarized version of what the cash flows are, what the financial standings of our organization are. So that's done on a quarterly basis, and then the adopting of the budget is the other. That's what we build our quarterly report on. And the way we do this is that first off, the staff gets together, we go over through each program in each district, comes up with an idea of all the projects that they'd like to do over the period of time. I'll sit down with each of them. We'll go through that entire list, make sure that it's falling under the right category, that we're adhering to the financial guidelines that the commission has approved for the amount of money we can spend based on history and by what we project for revenue. This is done over, we would like to do it, have more time to do it, but given that we have a little bit of a different structure than other departments, given that we have to have approval from the commission to then recommend a budget to the council for adoption, we kind of have to get things kicked off about a month early to get the approval to you before it gets to the council and to the budget team and the auditor's office before it, so all their materials can go out. So we kind of end up scrambling, not necessarily scrambling, but cramming a lot of work into a very short period of time. We're constantly working on ways to be prepared for that kickoff sooner, so we can soften it, have better discussion. But overall, I think we do a really good job there. So the staff meets, we meet with Lincoln, we meet multiple times, and then we propose an expenditure and acquisition plan, and that's what it's called under the land bank ordinance. It's not necessarily a budget, it's an expenditure and acquisition plan that we present to the commission. The commission, if the commission approves at that time, we send it to the council for the council to adopt into their budget and approve as a whole or deny as a whole. And then we can restructure from there, but no, they can't just line item change, accept it as a whole or reject it as a whole until we get to the point where we get an approved budget. From there, through Washington Code, there's a requirement to have 3 amendments. throughout the year, and then there's a mid-biennium review, which happens in the fourth quarter of the first year of the biennium budget. So those are the schedules and the structure of how we get to the quarterly reports and the budgets. Next, I want to talk about how does the land bank operate? How is it constructed? How does money flow throughout the two different aspects of what we primarily do? And for that, we have two separate funds. We have the Conservation Area Fund and the Stewardship Management and Maintenance Fund. The primary fund where we receive the majority of our funding, which is the real estate excise tax at 1%, approved by the voters for a 12-year period of time. That comes in through the Conservation Area Fund, along with Conservation Futures Tax, also grants, donations, and interest from investment earnings. Conservation Futures Tax, if you're not aware of what the Conservation Futures Tax is, it's a very, very small portion of assessed value that is money that is set aside for open spaces and conservation. And the land bank gets that. 75% of that needs to go towards acquisition and 25% towards stewardship. So we can't just take the 360,000 that we get on an annual basis and put it all towards stewardship. It does have restrictions. So it does have 75% has to stay within the Conservation Area Fund for use towards acquisition. And then 25%, if need be, can be sent to stewardship or for stewardship activities.
Just, I'm gonna interject, on the conservation futures tax, one thing that did happen back in 2006, that revenue stream was bonded toward, the purchase of turtleback for a 30-year period. So we're still not through that 30-year period.
And that's the primary focus for the Conservation Area Fund, other than acquisitions. That's where we hold funds for acquiring property. Those funds do not typically, those funds don't come out of the Stewardship Management and Maintenance Fund. So the primary driver for the Conservation Area Fund is for capturing real estate excise tax, also known as REIT, and acquisition and administrative costs come from that Stewardship Area Fund. And then we have the Stewardship Management Maintenance Fund, and this is where all the work on the properties is done, where a lot of the granting, where the funding comes from. And the way the Stewardship Management Maintenance Fund receives its money is through quarterly transfers from the Conservation Area Fund. So the Conservation Area Fund funds the Stewardship Management and Maintenance Fund for all of its activity, and that is where we capture stewardship operation wages, the projects that they do on an annual basis, equipment, capital expenses, everything that's captured and done on a property is only captured in the Stewardship Management and Maintenance Fund. And there's a reason for that we'll get into a little bit later as I explain how funds are set up. But other than quarterly transfers, we do have some operations that do lend to additional revenue. We do have leased property. We have, I think, 5 ag properties that are leased out right now that we get revenue from, Kaufeld being the largest. We also have the Sailor Seed Project, our nursery, which its primary focus is not necessarily to sell plants as a business like a nursery to store. It's for growing seed and plants and helping for restoration projects here, because native plants here aren't easy to get or more expensive. And we can't treat that like a business and create profit. The most we can do is a 1-to-1 to cover expenses, which we don't even do that currently. It's about 2-to-1 cost to revenue. But we do host, or we do sell some plants to other conservation organizations and agencies around the county. Les does a really good job with that. And then that is also where we hold what is called the endowment, but really it's just local government investment pool cash account. So it's a combination of all sorts of types of investments that are usually governmental bonds and a few other things that off the top of my head I couldn't really speak on 5 or 6 different areas that the local government investment pool is diversified in, but it's primarily based out of treasuries and bonds. And that percentage rises and falls based on what the Fed sets as the current rate. So it tracks that. So at certain times it's great, certain times it's not. We also have the ability to go out and invest our own money in bonds and treasuries as well. And that's something that we look into. But that is where we hold what we do call the endowment, which, you know, is supposed to fund the land bank and conservation of lands into the future. If the land bank cease to operate. Those are funds to work off. So we do have that fund in there also, that we transfer $500,000 annually to, on top of just investment earnings and additional revenues. So those are the 2 funds. So as I was saying, the Conservation Area Fund is where we receive most of our revenue and do acquisitions. And then the Conservation Area Fund also funds the Stewardship Management Maintenance Fund for all the activity on the ground. I'm going to speak about budget and why, when we're looking at approving the expenditure and acquisition plan or looking at our quarterly reports, why are certain categories, why are they where they are? And that is based on the BARS, the budgeting, accounting, and reporting system, the BARS system, that is the financial system for Washington State and how they manage cash basis accounts. This is something pretty unique to Washington State using this BARS code system, and each activity has its own character. And I gave an example of some revenue counts and some expenditure counts. Each one of them is set up based on fund, department, base, sub, element, object, function. So as you get farther down that line, it gets more and more detailed into a specific category. And there's a huge BARS manual that anytime we want to add something to our list or change it or say, hey, why can't we put this category over into the Conservation Area Fund? Well, if it's not in the BARS code system and there isn't a mechanism or one in a separate category where we can move something, you just can't do it. This is a very specific set of numbers and codes for accounts that you can't mess with. And that's the whole point of the cash basis system for Washington State is this is what you're going to follow, the BARS code, and this is how things are reported for consistency anywhere you go. Because things like this come up from time to time from the commission, and this is the basis of why we can or can't move things around. Why certain things are repair and maintenance codes and stewardship compared to a capital expense. You know, they're outlined specifically with a description, and there's thousands of them. And there are people that help us figure out when we want to create a new new bars code or have a new category and move someone, there's people and resources that help us find those things. Let's see. So quarterly reports. So that was big, that was the budget, and that when I share the budget with you, why it is in a specific format is because of that bars code. And we just have to do that because that is how the budget is approved. That is how the auditor's office assembles the budget and presents it to the council. And now where we have that difference, as I mentioned before, where we have more flexibility of how we interpret our financial information and how we want to best understand it, and for the public, that flexibility comes with the quarterly reports. Over time, they've been adopted and changed based on different commission members and their input, different finance chairs for the commission at the time. And just in the 5 years that I've been there, had three separate commission member finance chairs have different approaches, and it's really helpful, because if it was just left to me or just left to Lincoln, you kind of get stuck in your own ways and your own views. So I actually am all for changing that up, having different approaches. I don't, I look at this stuff on a daily basis, so yeah, it's simple to me and I understand it, but the point of these quarterly reports fundamentally is for the public to understand. And that is why we have its current form. And again, just a little snippet of how we have structured our quarterly reports recently. In the past, we had kept the funds separate, and we kind of go over the conservation the conservation area funds, cash, assets, debts, liabilities, revenues, expenditures, and then we do it all over again for the stewardship, management, and maintenance fund, and that can be a lot. So the current iteration of our quarterly reports is really the combination of the two. We want to know what the overall health of the land bank is, what its highlights are for its revenues, what its highest expenses are, what its administration and wage costs are individually, and really focus on what we've gotten feedback from the public and from the commission to see. And this is where we're able to do that on a quarterly basis. And that is all I have for today. I hope that for new commissioners and for new liaison from the council, that kind of gives a background of why we do what we do and how we operate. I'm willing to take some questions if you have them at any time, or if you need to digest. And if we need to do any sort of, second round, we go in depth like a course 2. But I think generally for the commission, understanding how we operate and our schedules is really the primary focus. That's all I have.
One note before you go on.
Oh, sorry.
Amy, is sick, and for whatever reason, she can't find the chat on her version, so, I let her know if she had any questions, she could text me and I took her proxy. Nice job, Erin.
Thank you.
So I just want to point out that Marilyn's on the financial committee, you're the chair, right?
I think I'm still the finance officer this year, I believe.
Yeah.
Which I've been for the last couple of years. So I've been working with Erin quite a bit on trying to make our financial reporting more easily understandable to the public and to the commission. Unfortunately, I come from a GAAP background, and the county's in a cash background, but fortunately, I come from a GAAP background that had to work with the county, so I understand these two systems, and I see the benefits and shortcomings of each. And one of the things I believe, it's very short. I believe that what we're trying to do here is give the commissioners enough information that they can make good decisions about primarily acquisitions, because those are very large expenditures. And number two, explain clearly to the public what it is that we're doing with this program. And so that's been what I've been hoping, that we're moving in a direction like that. One of the issues that is difficult for the board to understand is that in a cash system, we don't understand what money we have payables, what we are gonna owe, what our bonds in the future are gonna look like, what contracts we may have signed that we're gonna have to pay for. That doesn't represent itself within our current financial statements, nor does revenue that we're expecting, primarily grants receivable, show up. So that's all sort of additional information that I'm always leaning on Aaron to figure out how we can provide that information to the board as we make decisions that have to do with big chunks of money. So I don't think that there's friction between us, but that's the direction, and that's why I'm delighted to say that these reports look quite a bit different than they used to, because I think Aaron's taken seriously these two twin goals of helping us and make clear decisions, particularly being able to see the endowment in its own category now is very helpful. And it helps us to get ready for our annual report, where we're gonna tell the public, you know, in the publication, what happened last year with money. So that's all.
I want to say that, thank you, Erin and Marilyn.
And thank you.
We're really lucky to have Marilyn, working on this as well. One thing that I found really helpful was the projections guide. I don't have a date on this, so it was something that Erin provided and the team, that helped us understand what kind of assumptions were made in terms of projecting. And I found that to be really helpful.
Yeah, so there's more than just quarterly reports and budgets that I do. We're constantly trying to reinterpret information to make good decisions. So some of those are gap-based analysis, and some of them are cash. But a few other things that we do other than quarterly reports and budgets, we have a projection for each fund that goes out through the length of the authorized period. And I've built that out to look at annual rates of increase over 20-year period in the past. So, you know, it's something that incorporates times of economic boom and also recessions. So when you look at a period like we are of, you know, at the time that I did it, 13 years, because we hadn't, you know, we're still in the last year of our previous authorization window. The new one doesn't start until 2027. So it really helps to take a look at, hey, if we continue on this trend or this trend, this is where we would end up. And making decisions within that window affect the end result. And it's something that we can update constantly. So it's just nice to always have that eye for the future, but nothing's a sure thing, right? It's just, hey, if we make this adjustment and then we do, this is how things look further down the road. So we have projections. We do a monthly cash flow report that I work with Lincoln on and go over with him on an annual basis or on a monthly basis. And that does include some of the payables that are not received yet in larger amounts for things that, you know, grants that we're expecting to receive soon, or expenses that we know that are coming up because of acquisitions or big projects, capital projects that we're doing. So we'll do a little cash analysis and whether we need to add to or pull from our local government investment pool, which is our, you know, our investment funds. We make those determinations on a monthly basis. We have REIT reports, real estate excise reports that we get from the treasurer's office, from daily closures on property sales. We know what percentage goes to which district. You know, we do a lot of analysis other than quarterly reports and budgets. So, we're constantly being able to, interpret the information of revenue expenditures, future payables and expenses in many different ways. And just a reminder to new commissioners and, you can always call Lincoln or myself. And if you want to understand a specific implication to our finances based on an idea that you have, just call me up. I can always, share with you anything that I want. I've been tested with some hard ones in the past, and some are easier than others, but I'm always more than happy to work through that with you guys.
I have two more sentences.
We got lots of time.
Oh, you want me to talk for a while? I just for our new commissioners, frequently you look at a budget and you think that's what we're gonna spend during the year. That does not include acquisitions and conservation easements. So when we come up with an opportunity, we're not gonna look at the budget, we're gonna look at Aaron and say, and Lincoln, and say, can we afford to do this? Because we actually amend our budget after we make that decision and put that process in motion. It's a little bit backwards, but that's how we work with the budget process 3 times a year with the amendments. So it's not as if we adopt a budget at the beginning of the year and then forget about it. We're constantly re-engaging with it every time we have an opportunity to make sure that that is something that not only fits our mission, but that we can look forward to in the next few years being able to fund that project. That's it.
And I did send in meeting materials or financial guidelines. We always have, there's always full documentation of county code for what the land bank can do as a whole, which has some of that information, but anything that we are required to do by law financially is in those financial guidelines, and currently how the land bank commission has authorized funds to be spent. Some of those things can change at any time, and that's why they're guidelines and not policy, because the mechanisms to change those are a lot different. But especially for the 2 new commissioners, that's kind of gonna be a catch-all for what we're able to do and how we currently spend our money. Yep.
So our REIT as of December 2025 was 306, oh no, 4 million, 4.3.
4.3 million for 2025, yes.
And we had previously budgeted 3.5.
3.5, yeah.
So that's good news.
Yeah, REIT is something that is probably our most conservative approach. Because that is our main financial driver, and real estate is unpredictable. I mean, there's been times where we thought last year with the economy that things wouldn't shape up too well. But this market is still a cash market. And there's not a lot of, even though lending rates were pretty high. We're still seeing a lot of, decent sales going on, but they're cash deals, so. It seems like we're still riding that cash market high, but knowing that that's our main financial driver and it dictates what we can spend in stewardship and what we can budget for. It's a lot easier for us to say midway through the year, hey, we have more money to spend. If there's any projects that you were hoping or planning to do in 2027 because something got deferred possibly in 26. Here's a good opportunity to take a look and see what you can get done when we know REIT revenues are doing well. It's a lot easier to do that than the previous year. I think in 2024, we had to make adjustments in the other direction. And it takes a toll on everyone. The stewardship staff does an amazing job working with me to keep me updated and how we track projects and how we track spending and where we're at. We've developed a really good relationship and understanding that, and if we have to go the other way and cut back, which has had to happen, it does take a lot of time out of the middle of the year and the prime times for them to be in the field, so it's much easier and much smarter for us to project 3 at a very conservative rate and exceed that where we can add projects if we want.
We have till 9:50, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things that I think has really changed over this last year is grants, availability of grants. And I would love to, I mean, I know what we've projected and I know we've got some things in the pipeline. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about, as much as you can, about, Aaron might be able to speak to it in Lincoln, about what we can, what your thoughts are about where we're headed with that in terms of reliable grants.
So our grant revenue, the vast majority of our grant revenue goes to acquisition projects.
Right.
And so you just never really know until you come up with a project and you go through the grant process where you're going to come out. But with each acquisition, we definitely go through this exercise. It's more than an exercise. It's a fight for survival. To find partners. Preservation Trust has been our biggest partner through the course of our history to come up with alternate funding sources for these deals, but grants also play a big role. I would say that the acquisition grant pool, the state primarily what is this state funding, state grants. So there are a few sources. There's the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program, and they have various categories. The one that we're most competitive in is the water access category. So you can use that in the past. There's also the Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account. We've used that a number of times also. And then there's salmon recovery grants, and there's several categories of salmon recovery grants. Right now, when you look at the state budget and how things are going, the WWRP program has held pretty steady. The organization that advocates for WWRP funding has been very successful. I'm also the secretary of the coalition, so I've got a real incentive to help them do well. But they've been very successful at maintaining strong funding levels for that program. The Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account is another story that's really been pretty shaky. That one comes through the Department of Natural Resources. You're never quite sure how much money is going to be put into it. This last round was probably one of the less successful rounds. We had applied for ALEA funding for the Cherry acquisition and did not get that funding.
Which is
the legislature did not fund the program enough to work their way down to us. And some of the grant, some of the criteria have changed in these grants, and not in a way that's favorable toward us. So there's been a lot of push to change the structure of the grant programs so that underserved communities have a better chance of getting some of this money. And so that when you're looking at that, you're really looking at population levels. That's a big one, and one we don't compete very well in. So we get penalized because we're not a big county. We don't have a specified underserved population. We do certainly come up in some of those categories when you look at the socioeconomic data for this county. We've got a lot of people who are not wealthy people who live here. And those are the folks who are primarily going to benefit from what we do in providing public resources for people. But still, it's harder and harder. Salmon recovery varies from year to year. So far, that's held. There's big swings and I don't fully understand, honestly, how that money arrives or gets allocated. But for example, this year, the county, our water resource inventory area, which is number 2, has about 1.4 million to work with. So we've got a project that we're pushing forward, an acquisition project to try and make use of some of that money. Actually, I've got more than one. We'll talk about those. When that money is made available or that level of funding is revealed, we tend to sit down with all the other conservation organizations and figure out who's trying to do what. We don't really want to compete against other projects. We don't want to take all of the money, we want other organizations to have a chance at getting funding for their projects too. So we do sit down and work through that cooperatively. I don't think we're looking at any major changes at this point, other than the ALEA category really going down, and that is one we've been very competitive in the past.
On the salmon recovery, what percentage of that is federal?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I can answer the
Okay.
question. We've asked our grant manager and haven't gotten a real answer from her either, to be honest with you. So there are some issues now with grant funding coming down to the county and the language that is imposed on the county from the federal government. If it's a federal government source. So this has been an increasingly difficult situation for us to face when you've got a federal government that's very ideologically oriented in ways that are different from the way we think about things. And so when you see requirements in those grants, it's a big question. Can we actually accept some of this money or not?
Can you be a little specific?
I'll give you some, I don't have much land bank specific Lincoln, but I can give you some concepts. From like a health and community services standpoint. You get a grant to provide services. And if on your application form, you have a box on that form that includes anything other than male or female. So if you have any gender identification that strays outside of those 2 boxes that you include on your form. Or you provide anybody an opportunity to provide that information, you can't use those funds. So you have very basic intake forms that might be used at a front desk to take a person's information as they're coming through so that you can properly serve that person with the services they need. But you're not allowed to ask them questions to help you target the services that you would like to provide. And so if you take those forms, the next step for this, and John made, he's either going to slap me or he's going to not accept it. Some of the requirements for this form require either our administrator or our department heads to sign off and certify that all of our forms meet the requirements of this grant. And if they sign off and certify on it, they become individually liable if there's a violation. Which means in executing their work for us, they take on a separate individual liability for doing that. And so, from my perspective as the legislative authority, I can't look at an employee and say, no, I need you to sign that grant. Because the liability isn't just going to come to me and the county, it could potentially come to them. And I think maybe as it pertains to land bank, there's probably language buried in a lot of these things that it's tweaks on existing policy that says, well, it can't go towards issues which address climate change. Because if fundamentally the granting organization doesn't agree with climate change. And they don't want the money to go to that work. Built into the land bank. Work.
Right.
Is to. Create projects that help address issues like that. And so that's where you start to see the conflicts, and I think it's getting more and more, the word for me is it's insidious, right? It's spreading through the documents in places that you probably don't even notice it. But if it's noticed, now the opportunity is either somebody's gonna be personally liable, or they can come back to us. Let's say we accepted $500,000, and they come back and say, hey, you got this line in your program, and it doesn't conform with the grant, we need that $500,000 back. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to work with some of those programs.
So we can change the wording of some of these things if we don't, for example, if we don't want to talk about climate change and trying to deal with climate change, we can talk about dealing with increasing uncertainties in weather patterns. You know, it's happening, whatever name you apply to it, things are just, there's a lot of uncertainty when you think about where we live and what's happening. I will say that one of the areas that has been very well, seriously affected, has been our work to try and manage at the landscape scale. So we were in a period where at the state level, Department of Natural Resources, and there was some federal assistance also, increasingly was going towards doing some of these restoration projects. So we've got a lot of forests out there that you need thinning. That's the primary activity that we do. We've got unhealthy forests, we need to thin them so that they can be more productive and more resilient. The other word we can use certainly is fire prevention. That's certainly allowed. But at the state level, a lot of that funding where the state budget crisis has been cut. So that pool is pretty much dried up at this point. We're hopeful it will come back, be able to make use of it again, but at this point in time, we're in a definite lull for that.
Right. John, did you have anything to add? Because I imagine you're working on this.
I would say that, I mean, I agree with Councilmember Paulson. I think that's a good summary. I think the one that gets my attention, that has gotten my attention the most is, there's a particular executive order from January 2025. It's called Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government. And it applies to the federal government. It doesn't apply to the states or to the county for any particular purpose. But it's an example of an executive order that, where the county's been, what's the right word, told that it will comply with it in certain respects if it takes the grant money. And in our view, can't comply with that executive order and with the state law or Washington law against discrimination. There are some things about those two that just don't go together. So it's not, there are other orders that have to do with maybe more things where the county has more local control, and perhaps we could choose a different policy direction if we wish. But I just wanted to illustrate that there are some ways in which federal money is restricted, where the county basically has to promise not to follow Washington law to take the money. That's not going to happen. So it's something that local governments nationally and throughout the state are seeing more and more frequently as a problem. And you've read the news this year or last year, you might know there's a fair amount of litigation about these things. But when that ends, how it all resolves, it's. Yeah, there's ever increasing uncertainty about the amount of federal funding, and also if we could take it, if we get the award, I think if we apply for funds that are tied to federal funds, because we apply through federally or we apply through the state, we may, not to be the bearer of bad tidings, but we may go through the process, get the award, and only then get some contract language that's unworkable, so.
Here Doug, we're gonna have to brief, because this conversation, I think, is really important, but it's been over time, but yeah.
Can you ask a question? I'm just curious, we're not, an isolated county receiving these funds. How are other counties navigating this issue?
Some counties have, well, a couple of examples, King County receives, I don't remember if King County receives about $3 billion in federal funds each year. King County's taken the step of engaging in multiple lawsuits involving the federal government. San Juan County doesn't receive anywhere close to approximately $3 billion. So there have been some individualized lawsuits that have settled particular questions as to that county, or as to the city of Seattle, for example. But there hasn't been there haven't been broader efforts that have concluded that would benefit the county as to these specific things. So there's not a single coalition that the county is or could be a part of today.
The state of Washington, I think last I heard, on a briefing from the governor's office, there's just north of 30 active state of Washington lawsuits with the federal government about all of these various examples. Problem, they take years to resolve. So, some of them you get an injunction, so stay against the order. Some of them, the orders are still valid. I mean, this morning, we just got a result from the Supreme Court about tariff resolution. So, San Juan County being little old San Juan County, we're not gonna be able to send John or Amy, to go fight something to the Supreme Court because we have work for that.
We are part of this people, right? And that, while that might be looking at different types of liability, that still does open us up to be in partnership with other counties that are experiencing specific issues that might be able to leverage sort of our strength, but not staying ourselves involved and working with others on it.
We do participate in some of the legal wranglings on other fronts. The one that jumps to mind is the opioid settlements and the work that's been done around opioids. San Juan County is a party to a lot of those. We're not the lead entity on those, but we receive money.
I think it's fair to say that the question you raise is a question that cities, counties, states, special purpose districts, corporations, nonprofits throughout the nation are wrestling with each day.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think this is a really important, that we need to keep up to date on it. I mean, I think of Beaverton, but we can come back to this if we have more time, and I just made Lincoln get behind, sorry. So, director's report. Thank you, everybody.
All right, I've got a few things for you on the acquisitions front. One that is not on here is the Coho Addition project, which is a salmon recovery funded project. We're working forward on that. The money it's there. And we just have a lot of details to work through on the acquisition, including surveying the area that's going to be acquired, because it's a portion of parcels, not complete parcels. And there are a number of other steps we need to go through to make that one work. We're anticipating closing on that property probably in the fall. October or something like that, so we'll keep working our way through it, but that funding is secured. We have another round of salmon recovery funding this year, as I mentioned. We've got 3 projects currently that we sent in letters of intent for. So that's the first step in the process, and next will come when you actually put a proposal together and you have to present it to the local technical advisory group. That happens in May, is that right? March. March.
March 2nd meeting?
Oh, is that right? What words? Closing in. So we've got 3 projects. One is this picnic point acquisition of a conservation easement. It's Shaw Island. As many of you know, the only project, maybe not many of you, maybe no one knows this. The only project we've done on Shaw Island was to purchase property from DNR, Department of Natural Resources. It was a school trust land. And that property was in turn flipped to private buyer with a preservation trust conservation easement on it. So we were able to do that at no cost. So this one will be our first real conservation easement if it happens. There's a lot of uncertainty still with the project. We do have a tentative appraisal. We do have a tentative ask out there from the salmon recovery people, but there are a lot of details to work through. I'll be coming back to you next month, probably an executive session to talk about that project in greater detail, so you can get a sense of exactly what we're doing. And what kind of money we're talking about. We're hoping that this will be, that there will be very little money required from us to actually make this work. That will be almost all salmon recovery funded, but we'll see how that goes. So more information to come on that one. The other 2, one is a restoration project at Judd Cove. And that one is something that we just really need to do. If you're familiar with that preserve, you will know that a lot of water flows through it from the road going down to the shoreline. And we've got significant erosion problems. We've had significant alteration of that stream course. So this is our effort to really finally correct that problem once and for all. We'll give you more information as we have it on the exact details of that grant proposal. And then one that kind of came late, also on Orcas in East Sound Waterfront Park, the Friends of the San Juans was awarded a grant to do some shoreline restoration there. Partly on one of our properties, partly on a property that is homeowners association property with lots and lots of different ownership. And that's created a problem with particular folks in the homeowners association and getting them to sign agreements about liability and monitoring requirements, things like that. It's proved very difficult. So our thought in this grant round is, well, if there's an opportunity for us to just purchase that person, that might make some sense to put a letter of intent in for that, which would enable the Friends to go forward with their restoration project. That was funded in the previous round. So we'll see how this goes. And who knows, when you get into these transactions with multiple partners on property, it tends to be challenging. So we'll see how that goes. Next up is the policy manual update. Yes.
I think, I know where all these properties are, but I think it might be helpful just to have, when you're doing a report, just to have a quick map, just where those
Yeah,
are.
when we come back next time, at the next meeting, I'll put together a PowerPoint and so you'll be clued in as to where exactly we're talking about and, what these projects are. I'll note that, where the commission makes a true commitment on these projects is in the budgeting process. So what you'd see is maybe coming back at an amended budget, maybe the first amended, second amendment budget, something like that. So we're months away from the commission actually committing, to doing these. Erin?
I was just gonna offer the first round is March 10th, so I think by the next commission meeting, we'll actually know how we stand. You know, they kind of tell you if you need a lot more work or if you're good.
Good.
So March, we'll do that.
Good?
Good.
All right.
Just a-
Oh, you have one?
No, well, I have more, but go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I will ask my question at the end.
So the next, up here is the policy manual update. And I think you all received, hopefully we had some email issues. But we've resolved those, but I think you've all received the kind of draft outline for doing the policy manual update. I think some of the big changes that we're proposing, first of all, our policy manual was constructed in the 90s. We've had some policies in this intervening period that have been added, things like drone use policy, but we have not updated that manual overall. And it's fairly incomplete, also, it just pertains to a few things. And in particular, on the stewardship side, there's just not a lot in there. So we're proposing to update it and add a lot more information to it. We have a consultant identified. And so what you've gotten is the proposed outline, of that, update. And so I'll let Peter jump in here. He's still out there.
Yep, I'm here. Why isn't it coming on? Yeah, I don't know. Video won't come on. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add other than that I got some feedback from several commissioners and seemed generally positive, and we'll incorporate that and hopefully get to work in probably in late March at this point.
We lost him, just like that.
That's it. We cut him off.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be involved anymore. Is there gonna be, so is that will be staff driven, or is that gonna be?
Mostly staff driven, but what our idea is to come back with a kind of kickoff meeting once we have the consultant on board. Just outlining the process. Hopefully, we're thinking maybe we can do that in March.
Sorry about that.
We got the message.
Good.
And just so you know, obviously any policies that we have are nested within county policy. This is for Justin, reassuring Justin. That we're obviously going to adhere to county policy. These are things that are more specific to the land bank that are addressed in county policy.
I had no words.
So any comments on the policy side of things and how we're moving ahead on that?
We're gonna have subcommittee.
It doesn't sound like we are. We'll talk about it in March.
Yeah.
My question was back to acquisitions.
Yeah.
And I apologize for ambushing you with this question. Any positive updates on the land bank, Orchestra Park and Rec, land swapping?
So I dole out projects for John to work on.
Gotcha. So I should have just turned it down.
Oh, he's not quite there. He's
Okay.
got a couple of other things that we're doing, but that one's coming along.
Okay, cool.
We have the appraisal done.
Oh, good.
So it's a question of how to structure that transaction.
Perfect. Well, that's good progress.
And then can I,
Is
it okay, Peg?
Just so everybody understands what that is, at Crescent Beach on Orcas, some time ago, we took a little piece of that property and allowed, the, Orcas Off Leash Association, that's right, to use it, as an off-leash dog area. It was part of the property that was a real problem for us. There was a lot of, undesirable things happening out there on that corner of the property right next to Buck Park. So creating that off-leash area really helped. And then it brought a lot of people in, so there were a lot more eyes on what was going on. But it's not really consistent with what we do, as the land bank. And so the idea here is that Orcas Island Parks and Rec, who owns Buck Park, has, property that they're not making use of that is more natural wetland type property, and so we're looking to do a trade basically with them. And then they can take over the off-leash area, which will also allow them to provide water to it from East Sound Water Users Association.
And then, my question has to do with the budget that's going through the federal government. Did the parks put anything in for us for that purchase of the Fraser?
So those budgets have been, approved, that's my understanding. We're talking about the FY 26
Right,
budget, which
yeah.
was already approved. The question was whether those funds have been released. And the word I have most recently from the park superintendent on San Juan Island is that they have been released, that things are supposedly moving forward. I'll believe it when I see it. So there are two projects. One is the resale of the southern two lots of Fraser Homestead Preserve, which would become part of the American Camp Unit of the historical park. And probably is where the Lyman Cutler cabin was located, from what we can tell. So it's obviously got a lot of historic significance. The other is an acquisition project, which we've been trying to facilitate. Not gonna get into any more details on that, but that's also on San Juan Island. And hopefully both of those things are going forward.
So I don't think we have time to talk about it now, but in terms of, Beaverton, we had talked about touching in on Beaverton, but we don't. Is that part of the stewardship?
Yes.
Okay, good. So now we can have a break. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. No. Okay, we'll start up again with outreach and communication report from Tanya. And I think they're going to run around the table or something.
You're gonna run around, okay, I will let this correct me. Mostly been working on support for the March 4th Beaverton Trail Open House. So we'll have an open house working with Rachel and the consultants. That is 5:30 to 7:30 at the Mullis Community Center in San Juan. And planning, we've got some working with Alchemy again. We will be doing second Sundays on San Juan Island Preserve starting in April. So waiting on some information from them, and I've been waiting to hear back from the annual report, or from PID, Partners in Design, or designers, regarding concepts for the annual report 2025, and I was hoping Brian might show up today, so I could nudge him. Chairs left. So, got him an email. I think that's everything outside of it was in the reports. If there's any questions? Yes.
So the Beaverton, say again the date on that one.
March 4th, Wednesday, March 4th, 5:30 to 7:30. It's set up as an open house. So there'll be stations around the Mullis Center, various parts of the project, history, possible, the proposed trail design, and then Oh, should double check. Maryland maybe would be there. Well, I think we need at least 7 people to help with the stations and then the staff. So whatever Sound Island Commission are willing to come.
And you'll hear more about that in a minute.
Pardon me?
When we get to stewardship, you're gonna hear more about that.
Okay.
And and 2 other things I forgot. I think March, we talked about, or maybe this meeting or perhaps the March meeting. Committee assignments, so I'll make a plug for communications. So we'll pick that back up, and then community conversations. We would normally do that April.
Are we still doing that?
Well, more, we can talk about that. Maybe once the communications committee gets renewed, we can discuss that and then bring it back.
Okay.
Is that Beaverton meeting specifically for the trail, or is that also for the management plan? Because my understanding is we don't actually have a management plan yet. Is it both, or is it just the
It's
trail?
just for the trail. We've got the management plan on a separate track. So we'll be doing that to the spring.
And maybe I was asleep when you said, but there's also a Beaverton sidewalk on the 3rd, right? For
Yeah, we've
council?
got a schedule with the council to go out there on the 3rd to take a walk and look at the proposed route. Bring your mud boots.
We want the commissioners to come as well.
Mhm.
And, you know, and
So do you know what time that's gonna be?
Justin,
I have it written down as,
So is that gonna be the first time the commission sees the site?
1 to 3.
On the 3rd?
yes, except for, the ones who've already been out there with Doug. And,
Yeah, so I think the most recent agenda that I've seen for the 3rd, which is still way out in our agenda world, was after lunch, so was it one you said was?
It'd be really cool if it could work out with the ferry schedule. What a joke.
I looked at the ferries,
There's a Lopez boat that leaves.
10:30,
2:30.
and then coming back, there's the 3:35.
So yeah, the 3:35 for Lopez, and the 2:30 for Orcas,
Oh,
or the 5:50, which is probably well. I'm good.
we could grab the 2:30 too.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could all be there for that. Okay. Okay, I'm jumping ahead, I think, into the agenda.
Okay.
Tanya, anything else on outreach? The one thing that we have not really addressed is the community conversation.
Well, that I thought we could talk in the subcommittee and then maybe bring up
Okay,
recommendations or not to hash it all through. For Chris and for Mary, community conversations started in during COVID times, as a way to virtually connect with the community, and we just kept it up. So the spring traditionally has been island specific, and then in the fall, one countywide. Usually with a theme or a topic, but over the years, there's been less and less participation. So trying to think about, is there a better way to do it, or perhaps there's a different avenue we should take, so.
Yeah.
stewardship,
Stewardship.
Karen, do you wanna go first?
Sure. Well, I scanned the maps, I just wanted to do a briefing that we have a hunting proposal. We'll be doing a public meeting, so this briefing is for y'all to make sure that what we present to the public at the end of March is approved by you. It wouldn't be final, we'll have a chance after the public comment period to bring those back to you. For like official approval. So we have two, and I'll tell up later, but 2 Orcas preserves, we had hunting approved in the management plans. For context, Turtleback 2022, we received 7 comments related to hunting. 2 were for, 5 were against. We also received, for context, 5 against decommissioning a section of erosive road. So, we've received some public comments already. Now, what we're proposing is, you can see some orange. There's phase 1 and phase 2. These are in the reserve areas. Phase 1 is what we're proposing for 2026. Thank you. Phase 2 is 2027, after we get things going. This preserve would have both public state hunters as well as tribal hunting. State hunters will be managed by DFW. There's a reservation system. The tribal hunting period would be specifically November 1st to the 18th. And that would be coordinated by the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission. And we're proposing public access remains open during hunting season. There's details still to sort out in terms of the boundaries away from trails, but these reserve areas do really help provide a buffer. The next proposal.
Can I quick?
Sure.
So the state program, the dates on that are from September.
They shift a little bit with that early modern season, so it's October-ish.
Through December-ish.
Yeah,
No,
there's a
let's do the early.
Yeah.
So, it would most likely, it would conclude, prior to the tribal hunting.
So
Right.
it's the first,
The deer will be gone by then.
Well, that's, so we're gonna, we'll talk about that. But, yeah, they're sentient animals.
So the hunting season, the first bow hunting, which is typically in September, and then there's a short black powder season in modern firearms. And all of that wraps up in the first round by the end of October.
but is this proposal, it said early modern, so it's just the modern firearms portion of it?
Archery as well.
Oh, okay, so it's just the first half
We'll
of the
just do it
season.
early, as we do in the other preserves.
Yes.
Not the late season.
Okay,
So the late part will come with the tribal hunt, and that's exclusive.
So the North Shore also approved in the management plan, 2 comments received from the public. 1 for a well-managed deer hunting program, and 1 was pretty much advocating that we very much work with the neighbors on anything, which we will. So after doing reconnaissance of this site, initially we wanted to target, there's a habitat reserve area in this preserve as well. But it's quite small, the preserve itself is only 58 acres. So, in working with the DFW co-managers group and then also getting feedback from the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission, we decided to propose closing this entire preserve to public access for those same dates, November 1st through the 18th. And then there's another slide that provides a little bit of context. So we've done site visits, starting last year. We've done a number of meetings. We've received feedback. We have a public meeting scheduled on Orcas for Monday, March 23rd, which we'll get out there. And then there's another opportunity for you to review and approve. We'll do share public comments. At that meeting, we'll have DFW, we'll have wildlife program coordinator with the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission. And then there'll be a lot of site preparations if this goes through in terms of delineating buffers from the neighbors. We'll start doing more neighbor outreach. The other thing I think I'll say is that we are proposing, using non-lead ammunition, and I'm not sure how, I mean, we're staying open to it, but I think we would most often we want to require that. And Peter, do you want to add?
I think you've covered it pretty well. Thanks.
Yeah.
What's the process for doing the non-lead ammunition? Because they've done that in Skagit Valley and it's been great.
I have to check with DFW on that, and we talked about requiring it.
Mhm.
And it's. I don't, that's a good question to follow up. Maybe by the March meeting, we would actually require it, but, I'm not sure about the process or how to do that. Do you have?
So first of all, we're just talking about deer hunting.
Right.
That's it. The state already requires, I'm pretty sure if you're waterfowl hunting, you cannot use lead.
Okay, so that's.
So this would pertain to the shotgun slug, which you're able to use, because you can't use rifles in San Juan County. So modern firearms are limited to shotgun slug, which is all you should be using if you're hunting deer. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Quick question. I know DFW has a long timeline in general for their guidelines to come out. Would this happen for this year's hunting season, or are we talking 2027?
We're proposing opening it this year if everything goes through. So I haven't heard from them that would be a problem, but I would want to defer.
I think they published the manual.
Yeah, they
now.
did like in January.
Yeah, so they may have a system where you can check in or change it, but.
Easy to follow up on.
Right.
Hey, Aaron, hey, maybe I would add that just for the commission's benefit that, I do think there's going to be some controversy here. I've communicated with the North Shore Preserve neighbors a number of times on this topic, and there are definitely mixed views about this, ranging from just safety concern to outright opposition. So I think, we're going to hopefully work through that. And, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some controversy. And when we have a public meeting, I'm sure some folks will come out strongly against it, just so no one's caught off guard by that.
Can I ask a quick question? I can follow up on this, Peter, if it's more appropriate, but that quick look of the Turtleback map. What's the access for hunters? Like on the east side, those really steep bluffs?
Yeah, so.
And then the other side is the open, hillside. There's no roads, there's no trails. So what is access for hunters in that situation?
The north entrance, for phase one.
Looks like it can.
Are you going back to that map, Aaron?
But we can.
Driving, would you open it up to vehicle access or walking in?
No, at this point, it would be walking, yeah, and we've kind of trekked through there, I think twice at this point for the north, for that base of the night.
Can you make that bigger?
No.
Okay.
That's the best we
That's a
can.
good answer.
It's really steep.
Yeah.
Aaron, I just have one question. What do we do like at a public meeting when there is a significant level of opposition? Do we ever
Just
take that into
You
consideration?
listen for sure.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure, because if it's in the management plan and that's been passed and.
Well, language in the management plan assured that we would have more meetings on the topic. So conceptually, it was approved, but not without, more public engagement. Which is about honing in the proposal like this and then presenting that.
I just wondered, so, doesn't answer your question about access, but.
Will you clarify, so is that on the east side of the green there, is that actually the Crow Valley Road, or does the preserve go over farther to the east? I can, never mind, I'll look into this farther before.
If we can sidebar this, that would be great.
Yeah.
And we can go over,
Yeah,
where
I'll
we
look
can
at it,
actually see the map.
yeah,
And talk about more details, but I do want to get on to the
yeah, sorry.
Beaverton Trail part of that. Okay.
Sidebar. That's a new line.
Send the questions, but primarily that this is the proposal that we would bring to the public. Even though there'll be a lot of neighbor conversations prior to that.
Okay. Lincoln, are you, what's next?
Rachel's up.
Rachel's back. We're just getting the map. Okay.
And I'll just say, while we're waiting. While we're waiting for Rachel, that both Doug and Eliza were appalled that I forgot about the Ellis family. Project that we had on Shaw, the historic preservation easement on the Ellis farm.
Do we have any list on the house?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very tiny
So,
little.
just to note that.
Yes.
You want us, so Rachel, you're ready to go ahead?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Maybe you can come back to that later. I think it's cool. This is. Do we file a complaint with the Grange?
I'm sure that's, the ceiling is being more exposed, probably.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. Okay, so Rachel, why don't you introduce yourself? Please.
Okay, so, Rachel Deedsman, Special Project Manager for the Land Bank for this project only. So I'm just here to give you an update of the status. I apologize for not having done that sooner. But we actually have something to talk about today, so that's nice. What you have is draft maps of the proposed alignment on the trail. This is our 30% design level. Can you move on that page? Just for reference. And so it starts on the east side at the John Lundy Park. And we have this wonderful 5-acre parcel here that was given to us, where we have the beginning of our trail, and we go and cross the marsh and get over to the west side, which is shown on the next page. And so the alignment it's pretty good. We have some changes to the route on the east side that Doug has field fit. I assisted a little bit on that, which was super exciting. And that is on the existing trail section, which is the orange area here, where all those switchbacks are. But then we also go down the slope, so that is red. And that area is brand new trail that we'll be building. It's a very steep slope. When we go on our site walk, we will probably start at Lindy and walk here. We can take people who are adventurous to go down this slope, which has not, it's only been cleared a little bit, so it's very rough.
Everybody's going.
Okay, we're all going down the slope. The wetland itself is full of water, so we are not crossing the wetland today. Yeah. And John, you're joining us, right? Yeah. And then on the far side, on the west side of the marsh is also, this one is in orange. That's a new trail to get up to the existing Dragonfly Loop on that preserve. And
So will we go at it from both sides?
Well, yes, and some people it will start on the east side because it's short, it's actually not too muddy there. And some people may want to just have a brief introduction, and then we'll go over to Halverson. That's a longer walk. You can,
Yeah, so people who are taking the ferry probably are just doing the first part.
yeah. So you can see, these maps are at the same scale, and you can see there's a lot longer route, on the east side than there is on the west side than there is on the east side. So I can say more things, but I prefer to hear if you have any questions.
I have a lot of questions. I think other people maybe do as well. But maybe not. Well, one, following up on our conversation that we had earlier, do we have any of these federal constraints because this is federal money? In terms of
accessibility?
No,
those
no,
restricted language.
No, there's none of that, because this money was allocated prior,
Okay.
so it's.
So we don't have to go through all these figures. Okay. One of my questions is, so we have $5 million, is that correct? That was allocated by Larson.
5.2 million.
Okay. When will we see a budget for what we think it might cost? And I know we've got the consulting firm. And you're representing us. On
Correct.
this. Yeah. So I guess there's, when will we get the information from the consultants about kind of what we think it's gonna cost? And then what happens if it goes over budget? And what's our requirement? Because we have a match requirement. So and I don't think that's in the budget yet. So all those kind of questions.
Excellent.
Some of that matching is in the budget because Rachel's time is in the budget.
Okay.
We adopted a budget that included her time.
The excellent questions, and I can answer all of them. Let's start with the budget. One of the spreadsheets that Erin had shown earlier showed both the federal and the land bank match. So that was around 700,000, just over 700,000. And as for the cost estimate for the construction, because we already have our cost estimate for the professional engineering work, the PE phase, which ends in September. And that will get us to a design package ready for bid and approved by WashDOT. Once we get that, then we go out to bid for the construction contracts. We may have more than one. We don't know if we're phasing the construction, how that's happening. I think we likely will phase. We'll do some early work in the forest in the wintertime. When it's wet, it can be done, and we aren't disturbing migrating birds and that kind of thing. But the crossing at the marsh will have to happen in August, maybe. It will have to happen when it's dry. We're not tracking piles through the water and trying to build over the water. So we need to access in the dry. So the cost estimate will not be available in any kind of reasonable fashion until around 60% design. And that will have 60% of minus. We'll see that in May, the end of May. And then we can speak more accurately on what we're going to do. So the scope of the project is very broad right now. And if we end up not being able to afford in the grant and the match the entire scope that we have, then we'll pick the parts that are most important, and we'll do those, and the others we'll, attack in other fashions. Volunteer work, land bank staff, that kind of thing. So we don't know until we get there. It's a big project for, what seems like a lot of money, but it's not really that much money for construction, so. I think I answered all your questions. Did I miss anything?
If there's others.
Yeah.
No. No, because I think we adopted, I think we talked about this when we adopted the budget, didn't we? As far as what the total match was gonna be. I just asked Aaron if he could perhaps share with us the document that shows the total commitment.
Pull it up right now.
Yes. Because that wasn't provided in a meeting, our regular meeting materials, but I think that's where the land, I mean, I don't know whether commission's oversight responsibilities exist in this project. Except in adopting or approving a budget to send on to council, so. It's good, to me, that's where, the intersection of what we should be doing.
So here we have, you can see it, Beaverton Trail,
Yeah.
Washoe,
Mhm.
5.28 for the total grant, and then the 7.12 is the max obligation.
If we spend all.
If we spend the entire award,
Right.
Is that a percent that's required?
13.5%.
Thank you. And so. Good. I'm just looking at your project reimbursement schedule.
Yeah.
Does that, oh, there you go. That makes more
So this is, yeah, for all of the grants, and just to go back, this is an example of like a gap analysis,
Mhm.
so.
What do you need to come up with? But that's total project, that's not our match.
Right, this is the total project reimbursement schedule based on match percentages.
So are you putting 100% of the project or just the grant in that line?
This is just reimbursement back to the.
So that's just the
line.
grant,
Yeah,
that doesn't include our expenditures on match.
right,
Okay, so that would be helpful to see probably, because that's a budget number that we're gonna need to think about at some point. And, you know, it's just a 11, 13 or 11. 13.5% of each of those numbers would be what our budget number would be for each year.
Yeah.
So the project has to be completed by 28?
No, 28 plus, so 32 is
31.
31.
31, I believe is the date, but it has to be.
Oh, wow. We're gonna be old by then.
So is the match, does the land bank pay the match annually, or is it due at the end of the project?
We pay when we get billed by the consultant, and then we submit for reimbursement for the 86.5%.
So each reimbursement request includes subtracting our match from.
Correct.
Right.
So we get back.
Yeah.
the remaining.
Good, thanks.
So we're gonna do it.
And then there's a 15% de minimis rate for administrative costs and things like that. But that goes back to the general fund, that does not come to us. Because the auditor's office handles billing, our grant administrator for the county helps with that process. So that covers the county's expense.
Okay, so what we need to pay will increase quite a bit in 2027.
Yes, when construction phase.
Yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
And when we have our public meeting, how are you gonna present it in terms of like conceptual design? Because there was, at one point, there was DOT required a certain width and we were trying to go narrower, but I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that. So just curious,
Because I'm curious about how we present it and what kind of public feedback we get. So are you referring to the March open house? Yeah, we will have, so the open house is going to be structured with different stations. One would be the history of this project, of this preserve rather. One will be the route that we're taking. These maps would be within that section. One will be talking about the standards, so the construction standards where people get an idea of what it's gonna look like. And then we've got the boardwalk and sustainability, which talks about the land bank, fiduciary responsibility for this project and for all of the work that they do. So that's kind of both the history of the preserve and then the sustainability component. Those are the broader subjects that we'll talk more about the long-term business of the land bank and how that all comes together. So we will have information that will show, we know what our cross-section is going to be like. You know, the path is going to be 8 feet wide with 1 foot shoulders on either side. That 1 foot shoulder would be this sort of built up to support the structure of the path. And then, you know, there might be vegetation encroachment, et cetera, over time, but basically it's an 8 foot path at an accessible grade. And we're using the Forest Service trail accessibility guidelines, FSTAG, for this project. And it will be very nice. It will be will accommodate bicycles and pedestrians at the same time, on the same track. So it should be good.
There'll be big storyboards, that's part of what the design and engineering, so there will be visuals to go along with that, and then everyone will be there to answer questions.
Yeah, and we would love for any commissioners that could be there to help represent the land bank. The 7 o'clock period. Okay, perfect, yeah, perfect. We can,
All the fireworks will be over by 6:30.
yeah. We will, I believe we'll be having cookies. So.
These are important. I didn't put on rather than burn.
Okay, good, thank you.
From a budgetary standpoint, I'm just curious, I assume since we approve budgets, that this project was presented and approved by the commission, obviously before I got there, because that's 700,000 is a big obligation, so.
Right.
Is that all, that's been approved already, or do we have to, how does that work moving forward? Like, what's the commission's role in this project from this point forward?
It has to be incorporated into a budget going forward.
Yeah, so it hasn't been approved in advance.
No.
So each time we make that
No.
13%.
And part of the issue is that we've just not known how much the project's gonna cost. So if it's gonna cost 2.5 million, let's say, total, and then we've got our 13%, that's far less than the 700,000. So there's just too much uncertainty at this point. We know that's the maximum, you know, the 5.2 plus 13% is the maximum that we can get. So it's definitely gonna come in under that. Question is where, but we'll know more in May.
And
So-
permitting, will the permitting happen, you get your bid package ready by September? I think I heard you say,
Yeah.
is that
Permitting.
package will be,
It will be fully permitted. It has to
At
be
that point.
a construction set
okay,
in September, so
so you'll
all
be getting
permits have to-
permitting fairly
soon.
soon,
Yeah.
okay.
But, and I appreciate that question because, yeah, we have not approved it officially. And so there's some discomfort, shall we say. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Isn't some of it, the root of the money was going to be used for something else, and it was an earlier council, and then this council approached us?
Right, so this is a very unusual project for us, and that it's not entirely land bank generated. And there was a previous trail project proposal and the money was allocated for that specific purpose that did not work out. And so it became clear at a certain point that the county was gonna lose this funding unless we could find some alternative. So we started to talk to council and county administration about whether it would work for this project, knowing that our goal here, regardless of this project, has been to try and cross the marsh in some fashion or other to create a trail throughout the preserve. What form that took, we didn't know, and we didn't know how much it was gonna cost.
Okay, that decision must have been taken up by a previous commission before I was on the commission, where the concept of building a trail connector from town out to this property, was that part of the acquisition of the Beaverton Marsh property? That decision was made?
Yeah, that was talked about pretty extensively when we were in the acquisition process itself. So in partnering with the Preservation Trust and in getting donations for this project, which we had $1 million in private funding to this project. That's was the vision for it, that we were going to create a trail that would go across the marsh at some point, but it was very nebulous as to how that was gonna happen.
Yeah, that's when we have to get the first, feasibility assessment done, by Dave Brin, and that was to inform the acquisition.
So that was prior to 24, right?
And there was never a management plan, correct? So the public's never weighed in on any of the trail. I was at the Zylstra meeting, when that project died, that was really controversial. And so this will be the first time the public's seeing this, getting a chance to comment on trails at Beaverton.
I think the first time people will have seen any kind of detailed proposal. But we've been talking about this concept in the public for some time. And it's certainly been people have been made aware. It's just not the specific details. And what they know is, this is all on public property, so there's no private property issues, which was the main thing with the previous plan. And B, that we're going to create this trail which connects the two parts of the preserve. There will be a boardwalk to get across. So they know the general concept. I think that's gotten out into the public pretty well. And the feedback that we've gotten on that has been universally positive. So we did have some conversation about this when we had the scoping meeting for the management plan, which was when we had the
August, last year.
Yeah, so this the focus of that was the preserve management plan. But this was a piece of it that was included within, not to this level of detail.
And there's also been a sign on the east side identifying a trail going down to the marsh, a future trail. I don't know how long that time's been out, but since at least August of last year.
Yeah, that was put up, for the, reserve opening specifically.
Okay.
Or the intent of getting something more permanent for that, and there we go.
So when was that preserve working? That was a couple years before.
August 24th.
So since August 24, there's been a sign up on the trail identifying this, and then I've been out on the trail doing work, particularly with Doug because he's recognizable. It's been, as Lincoln said, universal. People have asked, they're so excited for it and they're interested in seeing this go forward, which is nice because the other trail was not so happy.
Okay,
I just wanted just to address the public input discussion. from my perspective, this has come before us at council in an open public meeting, I believe at least 3 times. I don't know that we've actually held a public hearing on it, but it has been presented publicly at council, open for public comment, at least 3 times, I think, in my opinion. Yeah.
I just want to point out, based on this conversation, and this has been my feeling for a while, that there seem to be some gaps in communication and authorization of this project that have occurred within the last year. And I just hope that we can, with this type of example, we can avoid these situations in the future. I think we all believe in really strong public hearing, public feedback before we get to a point in the project where we are committed and can't go back. So to me, it's just an example of something that's been a little bit, I know that everybody here agrees, because I've heard everybody say this has been a little bit unusual. And I don't think we're going to be held to account by any member of the public, but nevertheless, I think it's one of our responsibilities to make sure we're completing a process that makes sense and is very transparent to the public. Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna have to close pretty soon, but go ahead.
I just want to acknowledge, we only have one current contract, and that is with Bowman through 2028, with a maximum to the consultants of $1.25 million. And that's a maximum. So with a 13.5%, that's a max obligation of $168,000. That's the only obligation we have to this point, and that's a maximum. So if there's anything that happens before then, that this isn't gonna proceed, it won't even total as a land bank obligation beyond $168,000 for the project. So we are not 100% committed to that full amount of $712,000. There are points where we have a maximum set, and that's the only thing, only contracts we have signed at this point.
But we are gonna go ahead. It's just an example of something where that may be literally true, but in the real world, there's no thought unless, you know, I'll help you discover. She could. There's no thought that we're not gonna proceed with this entire project, so. That's all I'm really pointing out, is that a large project, we need to look from the beginning to the end before we begin stepping down the road, because we are really making those types of obligations in the view for the public.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. I think what we would like to do is have an update on Beaverton most every meeting. Is that
Okay.
right? Okay, sounds good. And you can contact me anytime with questions, and I will be available at any time for trail walks if you want to go at a different time.
Yes. great.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like the field trip is really important. I think it is, yeah. To fully appreciate the value of this project, you have to go see it. And I just wanted to make one other comment, that of the value of getting these, especially on the west side, the trail improvements that we will be putting in there will make it really useful all season. It does get muddy right now, so there's a lot of value that will come out of this as well, to work that the land bank will be doing anyhow.
And there won't be any mosquitoes on the new trail, right?
Okay. We're supposed to close it.
We're about done. We do have one member of the public, and I just want to make sure that if they have a chance to comment or want to comment, this is the time.
I have a couple questions for you all and Rachel. Is it, so the trail design is not done? No, and after the open house, there's room to redesign what we're seeing. One question, I guess. Maybe anyone else? Oh, the walk, is proposed walk open to the public, or?
It has to be.
It's an open public meeting,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and is there a scheduled walk on the open house? I don't have one scheduled, but that's an excellent idea.
So we'll work on that. Thank you for so people.
Most of it.
So well.
Lisa, we're late. Oh. Mark, hey.
Hi, I'll be real quick. I just have a question for Lincoln. Lincoln, I know you said next month you'll have maps showing where properties are, and I know generally, but I'm not familiar with Picnic Point on Shaw. I do know where Picnic Cove is. Is this on Picnic Cove, or is this at the tip of the county park near ReefNet Bay?
No, it's on Picnic Cove, so it's to the east of the county park.
Okay, so you're gonna have two picnics on Shaw, apparently.
You can have as many picnics as you want.
All right. Thank you.
At a picnic island. No watching.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so quickly, you inquired about the Beaverton management plan, where we are in that process. That was, put up for review by the commission, back in December. That came back with comments, those were incorporated, that went back, turned it around internally. That went out to the Preservation Trust. Got those comments back on Tuesday of this week. Majority of the comments that were back were things that were sort of in Eliza's wheelhouse. She's made those edits. I need to get the last of a few things sort of tidied up on that, and then we're ready for public process.
Okay, I've done a terrible job of keeping us on schedule. So, yeah, I'm fired.
5 minutes late.
Yes, thank you. Okay, fired.
It's our old ending time in her.
So without further ado, I think we're going to adjourn.
Always great fun.